6 key.
Definitely masculine.
Welcome everyone, welcome. I trust you've been well since my last video. Today, a landmark occasion. I'm going to attempt the impossible. For once, a short video. God, please, a short video. Okay, so today I'm going to talk about Chuchuhuasi. It's a tree bark. It's used medicinally in South America. So see, I got lots more where that came from. This is extremely popular in Peru and many sections along the Amazon, where the Amazon flows. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Chuchuhuasi, and then I'm going to do some mixology live and in person right here with some herbal powerhouses from all around the world, and that'll be in the back half of the video. But Chuchuhuasi is one of the top herbs you will find in South America as far as popular use. So I've been taking a tincture or extract of Chuchuhuasi for over a decade now. And 10, 12 years ago, there weren't many people who had even heard of Chuchuhuasi. I would go to health expos, holistic health expos, alternative health expos. Everybody would have their herbs out from all over the world. And I would get to talking with somebody and I'd say, hey, have you ever been Chuchuhuasi? They try to punch me in the face. But now everyone's calmed down because they see it for sale all over the internet. It's much more popular. There's no problem getting it now. And so after taking Chuchuhuasi, an extract or a tincture of it, of the bark, for over 10 years now, I feel that I have a halfway decent grasp of what its effects are. Nothing like the knowledge of a shaman or a curanderos would have from using such herbs from a young age. But I thought I would give some background on Chuchuhuasi and my experience with it. Different parts of the Chuchuhuasi tree are commonly used. In the Amazon, you have the leaves of the Chuchuhuasi tree, which are boiled or crushed or perhaps mixed with alcohol, made into a tea. Then you have the root bark of the Chuchuhuasi tree, pulled from the roots of this massive tree. And then you have the bark itself. And the bark itself is by far the most common form of Chuchuhuasi that you will see in North American herbal commerce. And so this is what I'm most familiar with, not the leaves or the root bark. The bark is tough, okay? I can run over this a few times with my vehicle, do a burnout on it, smash it with a 5-pound sledgehammer. Eventually, you will wear this down. Very tough to protect the tree in the Amazon, of course. So, over the last decade or so, Chuchuhuasi has become a lot more popular. I've seen it just get really popular. It comes in waves of popularity. And I get questions all the time about South American herbs. So I figured I'd make a video talking about Chuchuhuasi. It's probably one of my favorite herbs from South America. Herbs are like your kids. You're not supposed to admit you have a favorite. But Chuchuhuasi is extremely popular in certain parts of South America. It's probably in the top 5 most popular herbs in large sections of the Amazon along the route that the Amazon River flows. So you have cat's claw, Uncara tomatosa, you've got Suma, Faffia paniculata, and then you have a class or system of herbs called Aphrodisiac herbs, which you're going to find them in South America and everywhere in the world. They're always popular because humans, we're driven to have sex. So obviously, anything that boosts that, we're going to want to seek out to enhance that act. So you'll see a lot of South American herbs which are linked to a boost in libido. They will have a red or a reddish yellow color to them. Not all of them, but a lot. So you've got your Chuchuhuasi, Clavohuasca, Wanarpo Macho, Muira Puama, Cachuba, and then outside of the Amazon, you've got Arjuna, Red Ginseng, and many others, which are linked to libido, which are also red. And then you have another very popular medicinal herb in South America, and that's Paudarco. Obviously, that's a more medicinal bark. It's not, it is red, but it's not a libido booster, not generally used as a libido booster. But Chuchuhuasi is used medicinally extensively in South America. There is some overlap between the abilities of cat's claw and Chuchuhuasi. Cat's claw and Chuchuhuasi have similar medicinal abilities. You've got the inflammation reduction. They're both a diuretic. They both are good for pain relief. They both appear to have a positive effect on the immune system. And Chuchuhuasi has properties similar to American Ginseng as well, but there are no ginsenicides in Chuchuhuasi, of course. So every country and continent, except for Antarctica, of course, has trees, and the bark of which are used medicinally. So all around the world, you'll see tree bark used in popular ways. You'll have slippery elm bark, Siberian elm bark used for the gastrointestinal system, the stomach, cherry bark, which is used as a cough suppressant, willow tree bark for its pain relieving abilities, yohimbe bark, of course, which is quite well known as an aphrodisiac, and then we have cramp bark for cramps. It's an antispasmodic, and it has an affinity for the uterus, so very helpful for women who have painful period cramps. And there are many, many other medicinal trees, tree barks used around the world. So many cultures use tree bark medicinally. It's not unique to the Amazon, but there are just so many barks, roots, bark from vines with medicinal ability to be found in South America. It's overwhelming when you first start looking into it. You can hardly believe it. So Chuchuhuasi in the Amazon is used for a laundry list of health issues: menstrual irregularities, respiratory issues, kidney fortification, muscle relaxant, headaches, other medicinal actions on, I'll just say, runaway cells. I don't want to mention on this platform, the big C, the biggest C'est of them all. So I can stand here and list every attribute Chuchuhuasi is said to possess. Some of them are nonsensical and others are rock solid. Anytime you see a popular herb, people are going to make up properties about it. It's just for marketing purposes. It's just the way it is. It's human nature. Could Chuchuhuasi be an adaptogen? Maybe, but there's no proof of that as of right now. Impressive herb, nonetheless. So sometimes the leaves are used for one health issue, the root bark for a different health issue, and then just the tree bark itself is used in many different situations. So when you look at all the available studies, all the literature in English, Spanish, Portuguese, when you look at all the ways Chuchuhuasi is used wherever it grows along the Amazon, when you look at the scientific testing, when all of this is boiled down, there are 3 or 4 common uses that you will pretty much always find, no matter what part of the Amazon that Chuchuhuasi is used medicinally in or recreationally. So Chuchuhuasi is used as a pain reliever for rheumatoid arthritis, an energy tonic, and an aphrodisiac. And the pain reliever goes to joint pain and muscle pain as well, lower back pain. Is it ever used for all of these at once? I wouldn't know. What happens in the Amazon stays in the Amazon, I suppose. Maybe the ghost of Jim Duke is the only one that can tell us. But I can tell you that in my use of Chuchuhuasi, I have certainly experienced 3 of those 4. I've never needed anything for rheumatoid arthritis yet. Knock on bark. But I'm not really concerned about that at all. So all of this is just my subjective experience. I don't know what your experience will be because we're all humans, we're all the same, but we're all different. And that's where the art comes into, the art of healing. So Chuchuhuasi does possess pain relieving abilities. Now, when it comes to pain relief, this doesn't mean that the root cause of pain has been erased. You still have to deal with the root cause, whatever this may be. So you present me with 20 different people, line them up, and they all have chronic pain. It won't be unusual to have 12 to 15 different origins for that pain. But Chuchuhuasi does exert an anti-inflammatory action. Inflammation is not always bad. In fact, it serves a useful purpose at the beginning of an injury. However, it can go on for far too long and create destruction, fibrosis, and additional problems inside the body. And I don't want to see that happen to anybody. So sometimes we need this anti-inflammatory, pain-relieving action. And when you are way out in the jungle, I mean out there, no roads, just a river to transport supplies, there's no dock in a box to be found, you better believe that every plant which has a pain-relieving or anti-inflammatory property, it's used. It would be foolish not to use these medicinal herbs, trees, plants, flowers, leaves, when you are surrounded by this immense green pharmacy in the middle of the continent. So all of these have been tested for different properties over many lifetimes. So based on my experiences over the years, I can say that Chuchuhuasi has a mood elevating, energizing effect. When I take 60 drops or so of a Chuchuhuasi tincture, I feel it. I have access to hundreds and hundreds of herbs, and I've tried hundreds and hundreds of different herbs over many years. And I'm used to the different tastes, the different energetic effects. So the placebo effect, it's pretty much out the window at this point after trying so many different herbs over so many years. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and I'll say so. So if it's supposed to give you energy like American Ginseng or Red Ginseng or rhodiola root or even nettle leaf or nettle seed, I can tell. If it's supposed to put you in a good mood, like mimosa bark or Damiana. And yes, Damiana is for men as well. It's not just for the ladies. It can exert a strong psychological effect in certain windows of opportunity with men and women. I think I've talked about that in a previous video, although that may have been 6 or more years ago. So you can feel that when you take an herb like that. Or let's say Solomon seal, which I mention frequently because of my extraordinary positive experience with Solomon seal. I can feel that in my knees, shoulders, elbows, wrists. Now, obviously, if I take Gotu Cola, I'm not going to make a video saying, guys, I'm so impressed with this Gotu Cola right now. I can really feel the collagen multiplying in my tissues. I can feel the tight junction proteins coming together between my cells. This is amazing. You guys have to try. That's not going to happen. But pain relief, yeah. Energy, mood, elevation, absolutely. Libido, you notice all of those unless you're dead. So in the Amazon, strips of Chuchuhuasi bark are removed from the tree. This does not kill the tree, but it does take many, many years for the bark to grow back. So it doesn't kill the tree, but these strips of bark are laid out. I mean, you're going to be up to your ears in certain areas along the Amazon in markets with strips of Chuchuhuasi bark. It's dunked, strips of bark are dunked into, say, a liter of aguardiente, alcohol, around high 30s to high 50s proof alcohol, and the aphrodisiac energy pain relief properties leach out into the alcohol over days or weeks time. Sometimes you can do it overnight and you'll have an effect easily. And then you drink it, you get the benefits. suggesting, I'm always shy about suggesting any herb for its reputed aphrodisiac properties. Libido is very tricky. There are many reasons why libido fades. Maybe you're just not turned on by the person you're with anymore. Maybe you've been with each other for so long, the passion is just dead. So that might be why libido is tanking. There could be hormone issues. It could tie back to the pituitary, the luteinizing hormone. Could be psychological issues. Could be grief, person going through grief, depression. But if you don't have any issues with libido, and let's say you're taking a Chuchuhuasi tincture for, let's just say rheumatoid arthritis, which it does excel at in many people, or muscular pain relief. And if taking that Chuchuhuasi gives you an additional aphrodisiac kick in the pants, who's going to complain? So if you are in your 50s and you can easily go for 2 hours or more, you don't need Chuchuhuasi. But if it helps in that area while you're taking it for other reasons, then why not? So there are times when you got to put the herbs on the back burner. If I'm talking to a guy in his 70s and he's already just shelled out hundreds of dollars for purported herbal aphrodisiac formulas, and he wants to know what's best for erectile dysfunction, after speaking with him for a while, making sure that he's tried many different things, I'll just tell him to go see Alice. And he says, Alice, who's that? And I say, no, see Alice, the pharma drug. I'd rather see somebody using herbs compared to a pharma med. Every aphrodisiac herb has other primary or secondary effects which help a person. It could be enhanced circulation, increased blood flow to, perhaps the herb has an affinity for a certain area of the body. Could revitalize the adrenals, could feed the adrenals, could ease the body's reaction to stressors in the case of the adaptogens that we have to work with. Could be a mood elevator. It could be a help with concentration. So there's lots of reasons to pick a proper herb or combination of herbs over a medication. But it depends on the person. I've talked to guys I've personally talked to men in their 70s who have dumped maybe $1,000 or more into different aphrodisiac formulas and nothing. And then a guy in his 70s takes Maca or Chuchuhuasi only, just one of those, and it really helps him. And then I get the phone call, hey, I've just been taking this Maca. It's extraordinary. I'm in my mid 70s. I have to tell you, this really helps me. It just depends on the person. Many times Chuchuhuasi is used by itself and people see benefits. I have, but adding in other herbs wouldn't hurt. We're going to do that in a little bit. Seeing as how Chuchuhuasi is used for pain relief, arthritis, even rheumatoid arthritis, and Chuchuhuasi even helping with broken bones is mentioned in the literature, you could make a strong extract of Chuchuhuasi and blend it into olive oil, beeswax, and then you can add in some ground up Solomon seal root, some gotu kola, St. John's wort, Arnica montana flowers. You could ginger. You could add in multiple ingredients. Keep it simple. So you have different choices there. You could actually have different salves, all with the Chuchuhuasi. And it would help people with sore joints, painful arthritis perhaps, topical pain relief. So I have people who make salves who listen to my videos because you've called me. You said, Shawn, I make salves for a living, but how do I make my formulas different from everybody else? Everybody is out there using the same herbs. Well, maybe think about using a strong extract of Chuchuhuasi bark into one of the salves you make and try it out. Give out some free samples to people, friends and family. So, as far as my experiences with it, about 8 years or more, I think, I was blending some Chuchuhuasi in with other herbs, and man, there's no easy way to say this. I saw God. Okay, not God. I know it wasn't God because I'm still alive, but I saw the Matrix or something. It was very unusual. I mixed Chuchuhuasi tincture with a really good quality American Ginseng root tincture. I was heading out the door. I took about 4 or 6 droppers full, hopped in my vehicle. I hit the road. So I'm driving down the road. It was a beautiful day. And about 2 minutes later, it hits me. The sky is more blue. The grass is more green. The asphalt road looked like this endless ribbon of dark chocolate. It was crazy. Every car which passed me, the paint job was popping. It was like someone reached down and turned the dials on my eyeballs up to 11. And the visuals were the only extraordinary sensory feedback I noticed. I wasn't able to move objects with my mind. That's always disappointing. But I did feel the energy and the mood enhancement that went along with this unreal, I don't know what it was, this feedback I was seeing through my eyes where everything was super enhanced. But I felt energy and mood enhancement before and since with just Chuchuhuasi, let alone the American Ginseng. So I never tried that combination again, ever. I thought, okay, well, what if it never happens again? It'd be kind of a downer. So that was a one-off experience. So I don't know, maybe if you have access to those 2 herbs, somebody out there can try it and see what happens. So, but don't drive your vehicle like I did. So based on my experience of 10 years and under a wide variety of circumstances, all 4 seasons, different times of the year, injured, not injured, summer, fall, rain, snow, whatever, I had a positive experience with Chuchuhuasi. And this would be the bark. Like I say, this would be the bark ground up into a fine powder and made into a tincture. And it is a deep, vibrant red color. It's unreal red. So from using Chuchuhuasi for a long period of time, I can say pain relief, yes. Energy, yes. Mood enhancement, yes. Aphrodisiac, well, gentlemen, don't discuss such things. Yes, I have. Yes, but I'm basically a teenager trapped in the body of an adult. So arthritis, I don't know. I probably should have some issues with arthritis by now based on what I put my body through. If you saw the video, my bone and joint video, I went over about this much out of this much, which has happened to my body over my lifetime. There should be some lack of mobility, but pain, lack of, I don't know, but I don't have any of that. Maybe it's because I've taken the Chuchuhuasi and the Solomon seal root for so many years, both for over a decade now. So it's quite possible that using those 2 herbs on such a regular basis for well over a decade has prevented that arthritis from occurring. But there are well over 100 different kinds of arthritis. So I'm not ruling every single arthritis, type of arthritis out. It could sneak up on me at a later age, beyond the advanced age that you see before you now, but there are ways to deal with that. So it just depends on what type of arthritis. But I figured by now, based on everything I put my body through, that I wouldn't even be able to get out of bed in the morning, but I have no issues with that. So now we're going to get into the mixology. Well, everyone, the bar is open and the drinks are on me. I will be your bartender, and you will tip heavily because it's going to be awesome. So we're going to make two formulas here. One is going to be a vitality formula, and the other one is going to be an aphrodisiac formula. There will be an overlap between the formulas. So in other words, you take the vitality formula, you notice an increase in sex drive. You take the aphrodisiac formula, you notice an increase in vitality. Very common. It doesn't happen 100% of the time, but then again, nothing does. But it's very common. So I'm going to give dosages. These are just general dosages for each formula. Now, if this is a general amount that you're going to take, drops. So, but it is variable. So I'm 6'3", 6'3 and a half, 225 pounds. So I would take a little bit more than the amount I'm going to state here. Conversely, if you're 120 pounds and 5'6", then you're going to want to take a little bit less. All right. So let's get to mixing. So the first formula is going to be the vitality formula. And this is if someone said, Shawn, I've been taking Chuchuhuasi for a year now. It's really helped me with pain relief and energy. Can you suggest a formula that I can go maybe make on my own and combine some ingredients and make a vitality formula? But Chuchuhuasi has to be part of it because I've had such a great experience with Chuchuhuasi. So we will begin on that premise. So I have an array of herbs here, which is just a very teeny amount, which is available to me, but nonetheless, more than enough for what we're going to do today. So we're going to start off with the Chuchuhuasi, and I'm going to be using a graduated cylinder here. You don't need this equipment. This is for me. It's not for anybody else. It's for me because I need to remember the graduated cylinder tells you exactly how much liquid was added. And I need that because if you have a formula, which is a runaway success, and you run out of your first batch, and people say, wow, you know, that really helped me. Can I have some more? And then you forget how you made it. You're like, well, how much did I put in? So, but with the graduated cylinder, I know that I just put in 30 milliliters of the Chuchuhuasi. All right, so that takes a lot of the guesswork out. So next I'm going to use Maca root, and the reason I'm going to use Maca root, this is the vitality formula is going to be mostly South American herbs centric. So I'm going to add in some Maca root because Maca is the real deal. It is great for vitality. Now I am going to be using a concentrated extract of the Maca. This is a 2-to-1 concentration. All right, a 2-to-1 concentration. The reason I'm using a 2-to-1 concentration is because in the Andes Mountains, 14,000 feet up in the mountains, Maca is a staple food. There are not very many herbs or food crops which will grow at this altitude. There's just a handful. So you will see Maca used quite a bit. A family will use pounds of Maca in a week's time. And they will incorporate Maca into everything. They'll make cakes out of it. They'll make a fermented beverage, alcoholic beverage out of it. And then it'll be served with other staple foods at meals. So the people who live in the Andes Mountains, they survive on Maca root. This is not an occasional herb which is just used medicinally every once in a while. So knowing that it is used in large amounts, we have to use a concentrated extract, in my opinion, just my opinion, because again, we're going to be blending it in with other ingredients. It's going to be diluted. Plus it is a staple food. So normally you would be taking this in large amounts. Maca is nutritive. It has that great butterscotch taste. It is sweet. It is an energizing tuber. So a lot of people call it potato, but it's tuber. And then you will also have the chemical constituents which help the endocrine system and the adrenals. And one of these is called p-methoxybenzyl isothiocyanate, which is thought to contribute to the libido enhancing effects of maca root. So, in other words, to put it in a very short sentence, maca is just too good to not include in a vitality formula. So, next vitality formula. I definitely wanted to put this in. So this is Puama, Muira Puama, and you definitely want this in a vitality formula. And we're going to put a very exact amount in here. And there it is. So the Muira Puama, it's an interesting herb. If you make the extract correctly, you will know, you will taste it. It is a very strong tasting herb. This is extracted in alcohol many times in South America. It's called aguardiente. It's roughly translated as firewater. So, and I wanted to include the Puama because I have this book, which is 107 years old. It's called the Practitioner's Medical Handbook. I'll say that again, the Practitioner's Medical Handbook. And there is an entry in this book for Muira Puama. You can see it's just entry after entry. All kinds of different products, herbs, medical conditions, parts of the body. And I found it interesting that in a 107-year-old book, the Muira Puama is mentioned prominently because it has the origin of the herb, it has the amount you want to give somebody, and it has listed what it's commonly used for, which means that 107 years ago, there's a really good chance a South American herb was used in North American medical practice. So obviously something changed in the ensuing 107 years. But the Muira Puama is good for the nervous system, which you never want to overlook. Too often the nervous system is overlooked, but it's a vitalizing herb for the nervous system. It's a libido enhancer. It's a vitality enhancer, and it's good for memory and concentration. So if this ends up spiking your libido, you're going to be able to remember all the great sex you're going to be having, courtesy of Muira Puama. So our next South American herb will be, I think I'm going to put in Suma. I'm going to go for the heavy hitters here. These are the no-brainers. So Suma, Phaphia paniculata. This is a great South American herb. Spanish name, para todo. And Portuguese is para todo, I believe. So Phaphia paniculata, Suma. This is a well-known vitality herb, anti-inflammatory. It's good for the adrenals. It is considered an aphrodisiac in different sections of South America. So Suma in the powder form, not necessarily a liquid extract, depending on how it's extracted, but it has a high amount of germanium. And germanium is very useful for, how do I want to say it on this platform? A runaway cell division, okay? The sea monster. So in the powder form, it's difficult to pull a lot of the germanium out in a liquid form unless you're using a very specific process, but a lot of people go for the alcohol extraction and you don't get a lot of that germanium. So if that description applies to you as far as wanting a high germanium content, then you're going to want to get Be Gone. Oops, that's my buddy. Sorry, talk later. But you're going to want to get the powder form of the Suma. All right. So our next, I need, at this point, I've got 3 major ingredients. So now I want to bring in something to tie the formula together. I'm going to use Sarsaparilla and possibly one other. So because this is towards the bottom of the formula, I don't need to add a lot. I'm just going to add 15 milliliters to this. And again, this is to tie the formula together, but sarsaparilla is a great anti-inflammatory. It has other very specific medical uses, which I'm not going to get into on this platform, but it is helpful for tying the formula together, and it contains saponins, which is good for the adrenals in many cases. So those are our South American herbs, and now I want one more to offset the warming abilities of the Chuchuhuasi, and definitely not that. How about licorice? Yeah, so we'll add some licorice root. Licorice root is moistening. It is really sweet, much more sweet than sugar is, and you don't need much in a formula. So I'm just going to add 15 milliliters here. That's probably a tad too much for the licorice root based on a 4-ounce formula. So the licorice root, it has saponins. It's an anti-inflammatory. It's really good for the adrenals in case of adrenal fatigue, which is a terrible term, but it's a term that a lot of people understand, so I use it. Licorice is useful for tying a formula together. And again, we have that moistening action. We don't really have a lot of moistening herbs compared to the vast majority of herbs which are drying. So we want a moistening herb. So that will tie the formula together with the sarsaparilla. It will lend a moistening component. Get in there. And we're just gonna mix this up on the magnetic stir and let it blend for a little bit. So the dosage for this, I would suggest, if I was talking to somebody one-on-one and I got to talking to them enough, I would say for general vitality, you would want to take 60 drops 3 to 4 times a day of this formula. Now, it is entirely possible that you only need half that, or maybe even a quarter of that. Be quiet. So there's your vitality formula. You've got the starting off with Chuchuhuasi as your main ingredient, as a base. Not the main ingredient, but you're certainly going to taste the Chuchuhuasi when you take this formula. There's no doubt about it. So that's our first one. And we're going to set this over here. And next, we have our Aphrodisiac formula. So for the vitality formula, I mainly stayed within the confines of the continent of South America, except for the licorice root, Mediterranean, China area. So for this, I'm going to take a trip around the world, and I'm going to go heavy on the aphrodisiac herbs. But again, this aphrodisiac formula will be based on the assumption that somebody comes to me and they say, Shawn, I really like the Chuchuhuasi. I've been using it for a while. I was using it for, let's say, rheumatoid arthritis, but I found that it's spiking my libido, which is awesome. Can you make a formula, a libido formula, with Chuchuhuasi as a main ingredient? And I would say yes. So we're going to start off with some more Chuchuhuasi, and this is a strong concentration of Chuchuhuasi. This is not the normal 1 to 4, you will see. So I'm going to add 30 milliliters as our first ingredient. And the Chuchuhuasi, you taste it and you know you just tasted a strong herb. It is an astringent. It has the tannins in it, promote that astringency. A complicated structure to the Chuchuhuasi. Good for the adrenals, which is good for rheumatoid arthritis, because a lot of times what you'll see with autoimmune disorders is, I'll just say rheumatoid arthritis, I'll give you an example. The adrenals at some point in our modern living have just had enough. They've had enough. They no longer are getting the basic nutrients that they need. So the vitamin C, the pantothenic acid, and stress and pain and over exerting oneself and not enough sleep at night, the adrenals, and a lot of stimulating drinks, energy drinks, I want to add that in. The adrenals begin to lose their optimum functioning. And when that happens, eventually the adrenals are going to start producing low affinity. This could be a whole video in itself. I'm going to shrink it down. The adrenals, when they're not functioning correctly, they're going to be a critical link in a chain that ends up with your healthy tissues being attacked. And many times this is in conjunction with a pathogen, all right? And the adrenals cannot produce what is needed for the body to say, oh, that's a healthy tissue. We're going to leave that alone. We're not going to tag that. We're going to tag this tissue over here or this pathogen. And then what ends up happening is you have a degradation of healthy tissue. And this is in a nutshell. It's very complicated. This is what happens with the rheumatoid arthritis in many cases. So with the Chuchuhuasi, you'll see an improvement in rheumatoid arthritis. And I believe one of the reasons is because it is actually providing nourishment to the adrenals and allowing the adrenals to function as intended. But it should never take the place of proper nutrition and sleep and diet and a healthy lifestyle. But that is like asking for a miracle in today's world. So we have that, and then we're going to add in Maca root again. So we're back to our two original ingredients, and the reason I'm adding Maca root again is because, one reason is it has the p-methoxybenzoyl isothiocyanate, which I just like saying because the moment I read it, for whatever weird reason, it's stuck in my brain. And I never get a chance to say it, so now I'm going to say it a lot. Plus, it is the nutritive aspect. It has a sweetness to it. It helps with the endocrine system. So this is going to come in handy here in this libido formula. It's obviously Maca root's well known for libido. So we are at 2 ingredients, and now I want to go heavy on the libido. So oregano. No, we're not going to put oregano. Cacao. I could put cacao in, but honestly, cacao is kind of pedestrian. It's not really. It's an extremely well-known herb. The cacao, the chocolate. If you want to take, it is an aphrodisiac. Cacao is an aphrodisiac, but it is working on a different set of principles and different mechanisms than the herbs that we're using today. So if you feel that you want to add some cacao to a libido formula, then get a couple squares of high quality dark chocolate and eat those at the same time you're taking the libido formula, and that will work out well for you. So I have a choice here. Cistanche or Cinnamorium. I'm in a Cistanche mood because Cistanche is red, and we know a lot of times that is a signal for a libido form or libido herb. So I'm going to add some Cistanche, Cistanche tuberosa, Cistanche desericola, also known as desert thumb, also known as desert ginseng. There are no ginsenicides in Cistanche, even though it's called desert ginseng. Just like there's no thumbs in it either, even though it's called desert thumb. So this is a well-known sex herb, vitality herb, power herb, yang, warming yang herb. You'll find this in China, Tibet, Mongolia. It is used heavily there. Well known. And this is sweet, moistening, warming. There's a little bit, pardon me, maybe I should be making a formula for congestion, but there is a little bit of sourness to the Cistanche, but that's easily going to be obscured by the sweetness of the maca root. And a caveat for the Cistanche is you don't want to take a lot of it. So if you find this formula is working for you and you're like everybody else and say, well, if a little bit's good, then a lot must be better. Well, one of the side effects of taking too much Cistanche is diarrhea. So it's like nature saying, oh, I see you're having a great time over there. Let me just have some fun with this situation, give you diarrhea. But you're not going to have to worry about that with this formula because of the Chuchuhuasi that's been added into it. The Chuchuhuasi has the tannins in it, which are help with being an astringent. You can feel the astringent action as soon as it hits your tongue. And Chuchuhuasi is used for diarrhea in many places up and down along the Amazon. So it does have a astringent constricting action, which helps to stop diarrhea. So it's not, the Cistanche is not going to give you any problems unless you're taking an ounce of this stuff at a time, in which case I would humbly suggest you are going to have other problems. So our next one will be, so we're 3 in. I'm going to use Horny Goat Weed, Epimedium. Now this is very popular in Jamaica. Horny Goat Weed in Jamaica is known as Ram Goat Dash Along. And it's also, but of course, Damiana is also called Ram Goat Dash Along in Jamaica. So you got to make sure you're getting the correct herb, although they are both libido herbs. And for this one, I'm only going to put, 15 milliliters in. Now, I'm not going to use a lot of the Horny Goat Weed because this is a drying herb, and we already have the Chuchuhuasi, which is a warming herb. It's probably it is a diuretic, I believe. So we want to go easy with the Horny Goat Weed. Quite effective. And Horny Goat Weed is also used for other medical issues. You'll see it in formulas which have nothing to do with libido or sex drive or an aphrodisiac function. Horny Goat Weed is also used for bronchitis in certain windows of opportunity. And that's what we always want to look for. Every individual person is different and should be treated accordingly, which is difficult when you have the World Wide Web and people are just purchasing products, and I understand that. That is a limitation. So, but ideally, we want to treat a person one-on-one. So that's our 4th ingredient. And now I want a spice. I want a spice to be added to this libido formula because it is a driving force. And a lot of the great libido formulas are, whether they know it or not, are actually modeled after the act of sex itself. And I'm not talking about, writing on the calendar Saturday morning at 7 or 6 while the kids are still in bed, this is our time for sex. That's completely, I'm talking about pure arousal. You see somebody across the room and something in your DNA just says, I've got to have this person. Wow, okay? And then you don't forget this person for a long time. It's just instant. You see them and you're just, whoa. This is your biology overtaking rational thought. And you'll see this happen in every single bar across the nation every weekend, or every night of the week, actually. So, but that's helped by alcohol. So we want a spice that's going to duplicate that. We want this driving force, and spices are good for moving this energy through the bloodstream. So I'm going to pick a spice here. Nutmeg. No, I don't want to use nutmeg. Yerba mate. I don't want to use that. I'm going to pick clove. Clove is warming. Clove is an aphrodisiac. Wars have been fought over clove. People have died for clove. I mean, what more do you need to know? So I'm not going to be adding a whole lot of clove. This is just a little bit. This is a stinger at the end of the formula. All right. Now, even though it is warming, even though clove is warming, even though it will direct blood to the genital regions, we're not going to use a whole lot because we don't want it to overpower what's going on in this 4 ounces of this formula, actually a little bit less than 4 ounces. So clove is also good for digestion. It's a stomachic. So in addition to its other aphrodisiac properties, so if you're going to take somebody out to eat before you put the moves on, it'll help with your digestion. So we are going to blend this up. The dosage amount for the Vitality formula would be, whoa, it's going crazy. Stop. Okay. The dosage amount for the Vitality formula would be 60 drops 4 times a day, and it's going to be similar in this formula. Again, now this varies on weight, and it's going to vary on your individual physiology, everything you've been through in your life, everything your organs have been through and dealt with. So you have to take that into consideration. Again, height, weight. So I would take a little bit more. And then a person of smaller stature and lighter weight would take less. All right. It's just common sense. So it would take a little bit of time for this to kick in. It's not like a pharmaceutical med where you take it and 30 minutes later, ta-da, okay? But again, these herbs have benefits that common products which are used for erectile dysfunction offer. There's no comparison between the two, all right? Now I know that Cialis is used for, it's used in the weightlifting community because it dilates blood vessels and therefore you're getting more nutrients to the muscles, and it also gives a pump, okay? So which is what you want. I mean, you're putting all these hours in the gym. So, but with the libido herbs, all libido herbs have secondary, primary or secondary effects on other aspects of your health. So increases in circulation, increase or nourishing adrenals, helping adrenal function, memory, cognition, mood elevating, all right? So ideally in a perfect world, you wouldn't want to take any herb at all, right? You would just want to take an herb occasionally. You want some nettle leaf tea, throw some nettle leaves in, boil it, let it sit overnight and drink it. In a perfect world, you know, we wouldn't have to use things like this. Now, this formula can be, this is just one very simple, these are 2 very simple examples out of many dozens of formulas which could be easily constructed. So let's say I had somebody that was 60, 65, 70. For them, if it was appropriate for them, I would add in some Korean red ginseng, all right? Because at that age, after everything that body has been through in its lifetime, it's going to need, that person is going to need that extra warming, driving, stimulating effect, which is not something that you want to use at a younger age. So you really don't want to use Korean red ginseng or red ginseng from China at a young age. You don't want to use it in your teens, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. Now, 15 years ago, I used to say when you're 70 plus is a good time for red ginseng. But unfortunately, after talking to so many people over the years, I can clearly see that the physiology of human beings it's just being eroded at a ridiculous rate. So now, we're now joined live by my FedEx delivery driver. So now I see red ginseng as very appropriate for people as young as 55. Up until that point, American ginseng would be a good herb for you. So this is just one way and one example of how a formula could be altered. Or I was debating between Cistanche and Centimorium, but I could have used a 50-50 of each one because they are both, first of all, when you add Cistanche and Centimorium together, it increases the effects. of both. But I was using a wine-fried Cistanche, which already increases the yang. And this is just a general aphrodisiac formula, which can be tailored later on for individual people. So now I have these two formulas, and what I'm going to do with these formulas is, over the years, I have built a network of people whose opinion I trust, and like Matt, who just called me just now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send them this formula, but I'm not going to tell them what it's for, which they don't like. But I do this because if I were to send the formula to somebody and say, hey, I have a new formula I want you to try, even though there's nothing particularly new about this, but if I were to say, hey, I got a new aphrodisiac formula for you to try, what do you think they would say after a few days? They'd say, oh man, Shawn, I really feel it. What if I were to send them a vitality formula and say, hey, this is a great vitality formula. I want you to try this for a few days, couple weeks. Let me know what you feel. They're like, oh man, I just have so much energy. See, you're front loading the brain. But I have found that I'm lucky in that I have a group of people who I know their health status. Nothing's going to go awry when they take this. It can only benefit them. And they know the drill. I send it to them. They're not happy because everybody wants to know, oh, what's this going to do for me? So, and then 7 out of 10 times when I get the results back, it's exactly what that formula was intended for, which is really helpful. So I will distribute these equally among a small group of people whose opinions I trust, and then all the notations will be jotted down, and I'll put it in my file, and another one of God knows how many formulas to help people, and that's the bottom line, to help people. So now I'm going to call my son and make him take all of this stuff back to the facility where it belongs, and I guess that's pretty much it, guys. The bar is closing. I can hear Frank Sinatra playing overhead. It's time to kick you out. Thank you for tipping me heavily. I will not forget you the next time, and we will have to do this again. So there you have it. The herb bar is now closed for business. My name is Shawn. I am one with nature, and I will see you in the next video.
Okay.
Ready?
So today we are in Cancun, Mexico, and this morning we wanted to go out to the beach, lay out in the sun. Very windy today. You get to lay out at the beach, get a tan, and you get your face sandblasted for free.
This never happened to the other fella.